A science story, huh?
These NYU scientists,
I felt
right.
But I was so
And I just thought, well,
I had figured it out
It was that golden moment.
because science was on my side.
Hey everyone, welcome to The Story Clatter, where true personal stories about science help us to discover how weird and wonderful it is to exist in this world and be a human. I'm your host, Misha Gajewski, and today's episode is all about incompetence. Something that everyone has had to grapple with at some time or another because we can't all be perfect at everything on the first try. And if you take nothing else from this episode, at least remember that incompetence is not a permanent state, but rather a stepping stone on the path to mastery. Or at least that's probably what our first storyteller tries to remember every time she has to teach a science class. Our first story is from storyteller, comedian, and middle school teacher Emily Pitts. Her story was recorded at Jewel Box Theater in Seattle last year and is a cautionary tale to not avoid something just because you don't like it. And speaking from personal experience, it always manages to bite you in the butt. Anyway, you're gonna love Emily and her story. It's so funny and charming. Here's Emily.
In the late 90s, my parents made a controversial decision, the year I was 11, that they were going to homeschool me and my 3 siblings. And I wasn't so excited about this, but what I was excited about is that I had unlimited free time to read books. And I was a fairly self-directed child, and so my mom gave me all the curriculum, all of the books, all of the textbooks, and said, Emily, just read these, and if you have any questions, let me know. And so I read all the books, except the science textbook. That seemed pretty boring. I skimmed it and I was like, when am I ever going to use this? And when you're self-directed, you can skip stuff and nobody knows. How would they know? You don't tell them. So as time went on, I was homeschooled until I graduated. I went to college. And I thought, you know what? I love this experience so much. I'm going to stay here forever. I am going to become a teacher. And so I did. I got certified in English language arts and social studies. And I thought, this will be great. I'm going to substitute teach to figure out what school I want to work at. And so I went off and I substitute taught in middle school. And middle school children are crazy. They will try to hurt your feelings on purpose and accident. And so when I was feeling particularly like, I'm done with you guys, I would go next door to the elementary school and I would teach them. And they were just as crazy, but they were smaller. And so it didn't seem so bad. And after a week of being in the elementary school, the principal came to me and she was like, I would like to offer you a job for the fall. And I said, that's funny, but I'm not certified. She's like, what do you mean? I said, I'm certified for middle school and high school. I'm not certified for elementary. What would it take? More classes. And my mom says I've been in college long enough. 4 months later, I was certified. I had accepted a 5th grade position. And I thought teaching 5th grade was going to be magical. It was going to be a place where we loved learning, and it was so exciting. And I'd spring out of bed every day like Miss Frizzle. And I'd be like, we're going to learn science with magic. And that is not what happened. It was like drinking from a fire hose. I was teaching in a Title I school, which is a school that has unique challenges. 80% of my students were on free and reduced lunch. Many of my students were immigrants. English was not their first language. In fact, my first year of teaching, I had 3 students who didn't speak any English. Also, there was gang violence in the neighborhood. There was drug and alcohol problems all throughout the neighborhood. And it just was really hard. But what was worse than all of that is that I had to teach science. And so one day I discover this gray box in my classroom and I open it up and it's called a science kit. I was like, where did this come from? And the janitor is like, it's been in the office for 3 months. I finally delivered it to your classroom. I was like, I've been supposed to be teaching this? The answer was yes. I open it up And this is where my teaching dreams went to die. Like there was all the stuff and there was a teacher guide and I couldn't figure it out. It was on physics. All I know is what goes up must come down. We were supposed to build a car out of connects and then roll it down slopes and time it. I don't know why. We tried. It didn't work. I was like, we're putting everything back in the box and we're sending that box away. The next box arrived, and that was on biology. Now, my dad is a scientist. Both my parents studied environmental science. And so I think that's why they thought their self-directed child would have no problem with science, because they both like science. And my dad was interviewed for a book called Invisible Allies, Microbes That Shape Our Lives. And as a gift, the author gave him her first book called Invisible Enemies, which is on the history of infectious disease. And I read it, and I was like, this is fascinating. I was learning about cholera water vectors. I was learning about how the Chinese inhaled smallpox scabs to inoculate themselves. It fully sold me on vaccines. I am 100% on board. Anyway, I get the biology science kit, and it has a question that goes with it. It says, Johnny eats a sandwich that has been sitting out, a chicken sandwich that has been sitting out all day in a hot room. Why does he get sick? The answer is food poisoning, salmonella. I taught this unit so well that the kids avoided chicken in the cafeteria for a month. Unintended consequence, but successful. But then the third kit arrived. This was astronomy. Now, if it had been astrology, I would have 100% nailed it. I can teach the zodiac, the houses, the planets, the rising, the degrees, I got it. But it was astronomy. And the question was, you get on the school bus at 8 a.m. in November and it's dark. You get on the school bus at 8 a.m. in April and it's light. Why? I don't know why. A day is 24 hours. The daytime does not change. Why is the light changing? I was like, the teacher guide will tell me. There's a section in the teacher guide for teachers who don't remember or maybe never learned. And I read it twice because I'm really good at reading and I still can't figure it out. And I'm like, you know what? We don't need astronomy. When are we ever going to use this? And I hide the box under my desk. 2 weeks later, I find out science is a tested subject in 5th grade and all of my students will have to take a science test. I have to get the box back out. It causes me unbelievable anxiety. We get through that first year of teaching, and I think next year will be better. Next year is the year they changed the science units. No longer was there a wonderful bacteria unit that was about food poisoning, but there's now a design and engineering unit, an ecosystems unit, another astronomy unit, and chemistry. And I'm like, so much science. And I think I can do it, except in my version of thinking you can do something means you have to talk about it a lot. And so I'd be at my house being like, I have to do an ecosystems lab. I have to give children owl pellets. It's not even owl poop, it's owl vomit. And they have to pry it apart and they have to look at the bones and determine what the owl ate. And my dad, who is a scientist, is like, Emily, that sounds fun. And I go, Dad, if I give them dissection tools, they're going to dissect each other. These are difficult children. And he's like, I could come in and teach science. And I was like, yes, you could. When is your day off? And he was like, Friday. I was like, you're signed up. I'll check you in. So my dad came and I prepped my class. I was like, my dad is a real scientist. He is going to come and he is going to teach us science. All of us. And you will behave. And they're like, a real scientist? I was like, yes. My dad comes in and he explains the activity and he hands out the safety goggles and the dissection tools and the kids love him and they love the activity. They are dissecting. They are trying to figure out, is this mole bones? Is it mouse bones? Is it rat bones? One kid asks me if he can make a necklace out of the bones. I was like, that is very on brand for me, but not science class. So I gave him a baggie to take the bones home in, just in case he wanted to do an arts and crafts project there. But next, so we get through that. And I'm like, yes, they learned something. We get to the next unit. It's the chemistry unit. They want us to scorch mystery powders with a Bunsen burner. They have sent me the Bunsen burner. If I give these kids a Bunsen burner, we might burn down the school. And I am once again stressing out about it. And I'm like, they want me to scorch 5 white mystery powders on a Bunsen burner and observe the results. And my dad is like, that sounds so fun. I was like, can you come in and teach science again? He's like, absolutely. So he comes up, and these children who I had the unholy trinity of boys, they loved him. And they were like, can we scorch them all? And I was like, yes, with my dad. And so my dad is teaching them how to scorch things. He's teaching them how to add acid. He's teaching them how to add vinegar. They're making observations. They love science. They love him. It is a great day. They're like, this is the best day of school ever. I'm like, I'm so glad you think that. We get to the astronomy unit, and I actually teach it. I figured out the reason for the lack of sun and the more sun. It has to do with like the angle of the earth and how there's 2 rotations. I watched a YouTube video. I finally got it explained. And I was like, okay, guys, we're doing astronomy. I hand them out the wooden dowels and the styrofoam balls and the flashlights, and they have to simulate day and night. And I think they're actually learning something. And they're like, when is your dad coming back? And I'm like, soon. And he does come back. He comes back not just for the labs, but he also goes on our field trips with us. And he comes to family read-ins, and he becomes this beloved member of my classroom that all the kids are excited about. And I know this because Diego asked me one day, he's like, Miss Pitts, if your dad is a scientist, then why are you a teacher? I'm like, Diego, I wonder that every day myself. I don't know why. I am a teacher, and he is a scientist. But over those, I was in public education for now 10 years, but for 5 years, I taught 5th grade. And my dad was a huge part of all of those 5th grade experiences. And the thing that I have learned from that experience is that, well, I learned all the science that I should have learned as a child. And then my children got to learn science from someone who loved science and enjoyed teaching science. And now when kids ask me, Miss Pitts, when are we ever going to use this? I say, when you're the teacher, you're going to want to know how to teach it. Thank you.
That was Emily. To learn more about her, visit our website, storyclatter.org. Being a storyteller on our stage is just one way to make Storyclatter happen, but if standing alone in the spotlight in front of an audience doesn't speak to you, maybe becoming a Storyclatter donor might be more your speed. Storyclatter donors play a vital role in our ability to bring you this podcast. We're in this together. Storyclatter is one big experiment that's designed to connect us around our love of discovery, curiosity, and the natural world. If you believe in the power these stories have and this mission, please donate to the Storyclatter at storyclatter.org/donate. The most popular level is $10 a month, and you can make your tax-deductible donation at storyclatter.org/donate. But really, any level makes a difference, and we're so grateful to everyone who supports Storyclatter. Our next storyteller is biology student Andrew Barnes. His story is recorded at our go-to spot in New York, Caveat, and his story had me tearing up with joy because it's all about saying F the haters and following your dreams, something that's so hard to do, but Andrew is living proof that no matter what people say, if you love something enough, you can go out there and do the damn thing. Here's Andrew.
I am 11 years old. I'm standing in a rainforest in Brazil, surrounded by copac trees and rubber trees and camu, enthralled by the lobster claws and the orchids and the Victoria and Amazonica, in love with the sounds of the toucans and the jaguars and the ring-tailed lemurs. And that one is very important. As a kid, I was obsessed with Zaboomafoo. I'm touching every color and every texture, just taking it all in. But suddenly I'm not in a rainforest at all. It's actually the Museum of Natural History in Chicago. And the trees are being replaced by ashy material. And the smell of flowers is disappearing and replaced with an overwhelming smell of smoke. The animals, too, have gone. It's just me holding my mother's hand, crying, in an exhibit about deforestation. I plead with her to do something, to make it stop, and she does her best to soothe me. Honey, it is just an exhibit. This is not happening right here, right now. But Mom, it is happening somewhere, and we have to do something about it. I want to help. Oh, buddy. You can't do that. It is too much work for one 11-year-old. My first real no. Well, that wasn't a rule. No biting, no dessert before dinner, no elbows on the table. Those I had thousands of. But this no felt different. I was the third of 4 kids, and in an effort to limit competition among us, my parents gave us each our own path to follow. My oldest sister, Nikki, was groomed to be a teacher from when she was little, which she always knew she wanted to do. Betsy was the artist of the group, and my little brother, Ben, he was the math and science kid. He was a child prodigy. He could find a pattern a mile away, even if it was just one he'd figured out on his own. His mental math capability put all of us to shame. So I wasn't the science kid. That was him. As the only one of the 4 of us who wasn't selected for the gifted and talented program in our school, which was an advantage at the time, I felt unsure of where my place was going to be. What do you do with someone who is not gifted and talented? You put them in the performing arts. So I smiled my way through tap classes and advanced choir. I tooted my little baritone in the jazz concerts. I perfected my posture in piano lessons and sang The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow and countless other show tunes in the school musical. And it feels so ungrateful to say, but I hated it. All of it. So the no's continued. No, you can't go to summer science class. No chemistry set for Christmas. No science fair entries. No bug kits. No overnights in the planetarium. No, you can't take science electives. You should try speech or maybe Photoshop. No, you can't take AP Bio. You will be out of your depth. No, we are not signing you up for the ACTs or the SAT2s in science. You do not need them. No, you cannot take physics. It is not required. No, you shouldn't take honors chemistry. It will ruin your GPA. I wasn't a bad student. I just didn't test well. But my ability to perform became the sole source of my self-worth. And eventually, even I thought, I can't do this. I'm 17. I'm sitting in that typical library chair that is not comfortable, but you sink into anyway. I'm a junior in high school now in Portland, Maine. I'm in my first guidance counselor session. We're going to start talking about the schools I'm going to apply to next fall. I have a list of 15 schools up and down the East Coast because my recent obsession is marine life. Mr. Brady, I want to study biology. Biology? Well, yeah. Andrew, you can't do that. You haven't taken the classes that you need. You would never succeed. We need to set you up for success. You should try liberal arts school. I sit up straight, that perfect piano posture, stone-faced. I have perfected how to hear you are not good enough. Suddenly, the room is too hot. I can smell how burnt Mr. Brady's coffee is. The picture of the lion with the word excellence under it that hangs in every public high school becomes a blur of oranges and reds. But I pull it back. I put my feet firmly on the ground. I look at the knot of Mr. Brady's tie, so it looks like I'm looking directly at him. And I say, where do I start? He slides me a brochure that he's already pulled out about liberal arts schools from under his notebook and across his desk to me. And I do go to a liberal arts school in New Jersey, surrounded by a forest and not an ocean. Still beautiful, but not the tide pools that I thought my galoshes would be avoiding as I identified different types of mollusks. I study sociology and theater. Sociology, I find myself in the department easy. Theater, I focus on the one thing I do love, writing. I'm 21. It's the fall semester of my senior year. I'm taking the last general education class I need to graduate, environmental science. And instead of a lab, we have to do community hours to restore natural habitats. Naturally, I pick the Arboretum. On one crisp fall day, the professor, my classmates, and I, we head out at 7 a.m. It smells like fresh dew and stale vodka. Okay, I smell like stale vodka. A tree has been struck by lightning. The roots are still alive, so we need to excavate the dead bits so that we can keep the live bits so that the tree can continue to nourish the soil of our arboretum. We're working quietly. I'm halfway up the broken bit of the tree, and all of a sudden I hear crunch, crunch, crunch. Everybody stops. Crunch, crunch, crunch. I look up, and at the top of the hill is the most beautiful black bear I have ever seen in my life. Everyone freezes with fear, but I'm shaking with anticipation. The urge to run up and pet it is unreal. But I know better, so I do not do that. I have both hands still. The professor asks someone to grab the bear kit. Nobody moves, so I cautiously jump out of the tree and run to the pots and pans. On some level, this was expected. I bang the pots and pans as loudly as I can, running in a zigzag to make the sound reverberate off the trees like we've been taught. The bear stops, stares at us. This is it. Surely we are fucked. But the bear decides to turn around and go back down the hill. We clean up quickly, decide to come back tomorrow, give the bear some space. On the way back to campus, my professor's talking to me and she asks, "Why isn't this your major?" And I tell her simply, I can't. The next semester, I'm taking the sociology of education. Within the first month, we are disassembling the social construct that is education and what it means to do well in school. I feel layers of myself fall away. This idea of having to be good in school to be successful in life starts to crack for the first time. I am slowly untying the knots that tether my self-worth to my ability to perform. This projection that I've put on myself starts to fade for the first time, and success is more tangible than ever. But I'm about to graduate, and I have no idea what I'm going to do. I don't end up using my degree in sociology or in theater, but I do end up working full-time as a veterinary technician. I'm 28. It's 2021. Deep pandemic times. I do still write on the side, but I am working full-time in a veterinary hospital. I have finally found something that I am passionate about. I'm taking my licensing classes. I'm excelling in pathology. One day I'm preparing a sample for the lab and Dr. Luana Chung comes up to me and says, "Hey, let's chat." She pulls me into an exam room and she says, "So why are you in tech school?" My brain deflates. Here we go again. I sit up straight. I put my feet firmly on the floor. I steel my gaze. I tell myself, do not make a face when she tells you that you can't do this. I get my "I get it" speech ready, but she must catch on. I just mean, Andrew, you could be a veterinarian. Silence. The world around me shifts a little. I mean it, Andrew. I've never met anyone as passionate about making the perfect blood smear as you. After what feels like hours, I say, "So where do I start?" Thank you.
That was Andrew. If you'd like to learn more about him, visit our website, storyclatter.org. Our website is just one way to connect with Storyclatter, but there are so many other ways, and we hope you'll use them all. You can always follow us on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Head to storyclatter.org to become a financial supporter, or if you want to come to one of our shows, start your own Storyclatter show in your community, or even learn how to tell your own science story. You can learn all about that on our website, too. This podcast is produced by me, Misha Gajewski, along with Nikisha Roberts-Washington, Jen Chen, and Aaron Barker, Executive Director and co-founder of The Storyclatter. The stories featured in today's episode were produced by Kent Whipple, Diego Villarroel, Paula Croxon, and Ben Lilly. Special thanks goes out to Storyclatter's board and staff, including Anne-Marie Lonsdale, Leslie Bernson, and Lindsay Cooper. Our theme music is by Ghost, and next week I'll be back with stories that explore pronunciation. If you're a person who gets annoyed when someone says espresso instead of espresso, you're going to love this episode. And if you didn't hear the difference, you're still going to love this episode. The stories are so interesting. Until next time, thanks so much for listening.